Well, guys, today we're doing something a little bit different. We're not going to just look at a specific knife. I want to look at the ram lock and kind of show you guys how this works because I like this a lot better than the actual crossbar axis style lock. We're going to look at how it works and things like that. So let's turn this around, go over to the table and take this knife apart. All right, guys, this is a ram lock and you can see it is a crossbar lock, really akin to the axis lock, but it's done a little bit differently. It's a plunger style lock. It's really akin to what Benchmade used in the Anthem, which was a plunger style lock like that, like more of a plunger style crossbar. It has a lot of benefits to it. Like you don't have to worry about the Omega springs if you put tension on one side or the other because it's a plunger style lock. There's just a post and plunger with a spring on it. So let's go ahead and get this taken apart. Now, I did already break this pivot loose. I'm not going to lie to you. I know historically Microtech uses red thread locker, so just going into it, I put a little bit of heat on it with a torch. You can use a lighter, like a Bic lighter. Just heat it up just a little bit, not enough to get it really hot that it's really hot to dust, but it'll soften up that thread locker, and then use a bit driver that gives you some more leverage. Now, this is one of those knives that's nice to have multiple bit drivers for, because there's several different, you got a T6 here, you got a T20 here, and T8s on the body. So I have all of my bit drivers that I need, and it's nice to have a couple, especially on these body screws. If there's a pass-through in here that may spin, you may need to put another T8 on some of these body screws. It's always handy to have more than one. This mat is nice because I believe these are steel screws, and there's magnetic spots here where I can separate my screws for that. So let's go ahead and get into this. We got our pivot undone. This is a T8 for these body screws. And then we can just put them over in that magnetic area, keep them separated. We're going to make sure that they're not different sizes. So if any of those are a different length, we will put them aside on a different pocket. There's 4 different spots where I can put those that are magnetic. So if one of these happens to be a different length, which it does not appear that they are, you can separate it. It is really nice to be able to do that. Now, let's see. Do I need to take the pocket clip off to take this apart? I do not. Okay, so you can see inside, aluminum scales, a lot of weight reduction on them. And then you see our lock here. Now, this has got a lot of oil in it. You can see our lock here just passes through this plate. Now, we're going to have to get this plate off, and hopefully it's not pressed. I do believe I've seen people take this apart before, but I haven't watched it. I haven't watched any of those videos. I do know they're out there. So how does this come off? We'll just use our little pry bar here. It's got a nice finish, so it's not going to mar anything. I think we should probably move our blade out of the way so we don't screw up our edge. I'll just kind of like give it a little bit of lift and pry. Gently, not trying to force anything. Just trying to give enough tension on it. Get this plate off. So let's see if taking that tension off the blade a little bit helps. This is a very, very tight fit on these. Give me a second. I'm going to pause this. I want to see if I can look at this a little closely off camera. Okay, I figured it out. The pivot being keyed, when I loosened the pivot, I had shifted the pivot ever so slightly, and it was really putting a lot of tension on that flat. So it is a keyed spot, so keep that in mind if you try to take one of these apart. So I'm just going to wipe some of this stuff off because it does need cleaned up. So you can see here how this pivot lock works, or this plunger style axis lock works. So you've got this ram lock, I should say, sorry. So you've got this plate here that slides across and falls into this notch in the closed position. And then when you open it all the way up, it drops in. I don't want it to come out. It drops into a notch here that is your lock position. So this is soft enough here that it can drop out. And then this is a very nice little fit there up against that. Now, I have seen videos of people saying that their ram lock failed. So I don't know. I'm not going to make any claims as to the strength and things like that of the lock because I haven't done any real testing on it. But let's go ahead and take this blade out. We'll get it up here in a position where it's not under as much tension. Go ahead and take this blade out. I say that, man, Microtech'S are always so tight. And you can see it's got a multi-row bearing system in there, but we're going to move that out of the way for right now. Put that off to the side. We're going to, now look at this. So you can see where your lock surfaces are. So there's the notch for the closed position, and it just drops in there, and then it slides back out because it's got a rounded point. Let's go ahead and just take this all the way out. So nice little plunger here. This is an easy disassembly on this knife. It is not difficult at all once you know what you're doing. So you just got the plunger lock there, a little slot that it sits in here, and it sits up in there. And so this has a sharper edge here and then a rounded edge, and that's what allows you to come out of the closed position. Is it sits in there and it's nice and rounded, so it just kind of pushes that out of the way. And then when it comes up here on that flatter, sharper edge, it sits in that notch and prevents it from going shut. It's flat on flat, and this is a more round on, kind of rounded. And then you can see the travel surface here that lock rides on, which allows it to be smooth. It is a very good, it looks like it's going to be a very good and robust lock, because as opposed to a lot of other locks, you are covering a good bit of surface on that. The axis locks and crossbar locks have always been really, really strong. And you can see where that married surface is. Pardon my shakes, dude, guys. It's the nerve damage I've got. It is a very, very strong looking lock. Now I'm trying to figure something out here. It looks like there's a detent ball, like a detent spot, but I do not see anything that would indicate a detent. That might just be a artifact of manufacturing there on that, but I don't see anything that would indicate a detent at all in there. The only thing that does your detent is the spring pressure from that lock. And then nice big multi-row bearing system. Those are some heavy duty bearings, guys. So you hear me talking about the bearings? Those are not the standard bearings. Those are skiff bearings. There's going to be a video coming about skiff bearings and things like that some other time. But yeah, just know those aren't the stock original bearings. So I'm going to clean this up. I'll probably fast forward it while I'm cleaning it up, and then we'll put it back together. I just wanted to show you how that works and the internals on it, because it is a very good take on the axis lock that Benchmade came up with. And like I said, it's very similar to the one that they used in the Anthem. I like the fact it uses a plunger. It's going to allow that travel. So if you're one of those guys that likes to like push your axis lock on one side versus the other, you wind up with the Omega springs. One of them gets weaker, and then you can have breakage and things like that. No issue on this knife with that. And then there's just the internals on Microtech'S are always done really, really well. They do a very good job. Some of the best manufacturing out there, really. If you want to know the truth, they probably are one of the top tier American knife making companies. And the fact that they're doing really quality work like this at the price point, there's going to be a purchase link down below. I think I'll put a thing up. This is really well engineered. I like the lock and stuff like that. So let me get this cleaned up and put it back together. So I'll probably fast forward you for that. All right, let's go ahead and put this thing back together. I've already re-lubricated everything. I did that off camera. I didn't want to have to do the full cleanup on it for you guys. We've already lubricated our bearings. We lubricated everything on this. We're going to go ahead and just do this in reverse order. Now, this pivot didn't want to come out at first, and now it doesn't want to go back in. So I think I'm going to give it a little bit of a quarter turn to tighten up against that until we start getting stuff put together, because that was the issue. There we go. See, it's in there just enough to cinch it up against that. We'll get our plunger lock put in. Now, I did mess around with this and realized that I had this plunger. I'm glad I did it before I did the reassembly. I had the plunger incorrectly positioned and it was binding. It just didn't want to move smoothly. And so you got to be careful how you get this put back together so that you get that free. You want to make sure before you start getting everything in that you got free movement. So that, oops, see, we're going to have to play with this. Reassembly on this is not difficult. It's just keeping the parts in position so that they're not getting out of sorts with each other. And then you're going to want to put your blade in. So you want to pull your ram lock back, and now it should sit in there and sit in place nice and smooth. Then the next step is, now I've already pre-Loctited the screws that are going in. I gave it a little bit of blue Loctite stick. So since we moved that pivot to cinch it in, we're gonna have to move it back and wiggle it to get it to go into this little pocket, because it is keyed. Everything on this is keyed, and it is nice that it is all keyed. So we'll just jiggle this. There we go. And it's in. Man, that is sharp. That probably cut me. So now that we've got that in, we can make sure our pivot's all the way through. Make sure we've got nice and smooth travel on that. And then we just go ahead and start putting it back together, and we'll see if we've got it right. I was told if you don't get that plunger right, you will have some pinching and it won't travel properly. So we'll toss our pivot in first, or our pivot screw, I should say. Like I said, I already put a little bit of blue Loctite on these off camera so that you guys didn't have to see the full maintenance. But that's gonna be easier to disassemble, but it's gonna be enough to hold it, even, you know, even though they had red Loctite on it before. You don't necessarily need red Loctite. The blue Loctite stick is pretty good at retaining your screws in place. Put that one in. I'm going to put these back body screws in first before I put the one in, so that we don't run into any issues with pinching on this. That way everything's positioned before I tighten down the actual lock. Nice thing about this too, all those screws were the same length. So let's go ahead and put this one in. Oh yeah, beautiful. Let's go ahead and make sure our pivot's good and tight. Now, when you're tightening a pivot, that's actually already tight. When you're tightening a pivot, it's always good to just get it down and cinch it down and feel if you've got any blade play. And then maybe just give it a little bit, like you just want to get to where you don't have blade play anymore. You don't want to crank it down. If it does have a little bit of blade play, you can see my hand shake. We don't do these very often because my hand really starts to shake badly. It's not horrible today, but you can just cinch it down just a little bit. You don't want to just crank down on that. There you go. Super, super smooth, beautiful centering. Really nice lock design on this. I like the lock design on this a lot. So definitely superior, in my opinion, to a lot of the other Axis locks. So let's turn this around, do some final thoughts, send you out about your day. I recommend these. This is a great, great knife. I absolutely I violated my rules and bought one of these. There is one of these coming. So guys, let's turn this around and do some final thoughts. So there you go, guys. Yeah, just using it as like a plunger lock instead of the traditional crossbar style lock, it definitely makes it better. It takes out the issues where you have spring, you know, if you only use one side of it, it keeps it from breaking down the tension on one side of the spring and breaking a spring, and then you run into problems with a traditional crossbar style lock. This is akin, like I said, to what they used in the Anthem over at Benchmade at one point, but that's a very good lock, and I'm glad that Microtech picked it up. So there you go, guys. You know how to support the channel. Sponsors down below. Coffee Brand Coffee and Temper Trail have discounts built into their links. I've got affiliate links down below. I've got a ton of those. I've got a coupon code of crazysharp that works at multiple vendors. It's all one word, all lowercase. 40% at Beyond EDC, 10% at Rosecraft, 10% Fair and Forged Knife Works, and 10% at KATSU Knives. They just got their ZDP 189 ZK01s in. I got a membership down below. Check that out. I do a lot of stuff for those guys, including exclusive content and giveaways. And I have a public Discord down below in the description that says join the community. Guys, that's it on this one. I love y'all. Keep it clean in the comment section. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. And I'll see you in the next video.